Welcome to another Across the Nation here on AmericanFreePress.net. And I'm at a very special, if not troubling place in Elbert County, Georgia, the granite capital of the world, as it calls itself. And we're at the infamous Georgia Guidestones, which, as I assert, have the smell and scent and philosophy of Rockefeller all over them, as my research indicates. At any rate, this is the marker that explains a lot of facts about the Georgia Guidestones, sort of an American Stonehenge of globalism. And they were made by a mysterious sounding group called the Guidestones Group, which wished to remain anonymous forever, quote, end quote, according to this informational stone. And the Guidestones' central thing is that they're essentially the 10 commandments of globalism, or one worldism as it's sometimes called. And my assistant Angie is going to help me come this way, and we're actually seeing the stones right now, and she'll show that despite the sun glare. It's a very sunny day here in latter 2010, and these stones are about 20 feet high and consists of 240,000 pounds of granite. Now coming this way slowly, they're in several languages, including Spanish right here, and a number of other languages, as we'll explain more momentarily. Coming around to the side that's written in English, this 20-foot mega slab of Georgia granite shows a number of these 10 commandments. The top, as Angie will try to show, says, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. And it has a bunch of other impressive and broad-sounding platitudes that are typical of the globalist movement. Statements that are so broad that they can be interpreted many different ways. Of course, the very objectionable thing and troubling thing about the first commandment, notice that it's first, is to maintain humanity at a balance of under 500 million. That would mean getting rid of upwards of 6 billion people in some mysterious way that the mysterious founders of these stones are not telling us, since they like to hide in the shadows and not stand up and be accountable or known for what they do. At any rate, the Earth Charter, drawn up some years ago in conjunction with the United Nations, has Stephen Rockefeller behind it, who is the son of Nelson Rockefeller, one of his sons, and he very strongly pushed the Earth Charter. And if you look up the Earth Charter at earthcharter.org online, you'll see a very close philosophical kinship with the Georgia Guidestones philosophy and the Earth Charter. It's this idea that fewer people on the world makes the world a better place, when Christianity and a number of other outlooks completely contradict that view. The globalists have given us man-made global warming, which is turning out to be a sham. They've given us their so-called global cooling back in the 1970s that turned out not to be true. We were constantly given scare stories, and we're constantly being preached at by the globalists about how there has to be fewer people on the earth, and that we have to always bend to their will for elitist projects and central banking and interventionist wars and onerous environmental regulations, where we have to deindustrialize our nation and live a much more pauperized living and lifestyle. At any rate, now you're looking at the 10 commandments of globalism that are far, far different than the 10 commandments of the Bible altogether. The 10 commandments of the Bible being kind of a code of living, this really being more of a code of dying and perishing for the common man. Sure, there are other things. Get rid of petty laws and useless officials, and protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. But those are largely empty platitudes, when the very first commandment says to get rid of 9/10 of the world population in some unknown way, as I noted. Now lastly, we're coming over this way to one other marker here in this remote part of Elbert County, Georgia. And this gives the languages that the stones are written in: Russian, English, Spanish, Swahili, Hindi, Hebrew, Arabic, and Chinese. And it gives a bunch of other facts. It even tells you which way you're standing here. But the bottom line here, ladies and gentlemen, is that this Guidestones group that put this together, that has been remaining in the shadows now since 1980, when this was put up, this American Stonehenge. Now we're in the 30th year of this, and this Guidestones group still refuses to reveal itself who underwrote this precisely. The Elbert Granite Finishing Company did the actual physical work, but the people have a right to know who put together this 10 Commandments to genocide, you might call it. and certainly the philosophical kinship with the Earth Charter as Stephen Rockefeller promoted some years ago as a United Nations related initiative where all people are supposed to live in harmony, and under the tutelage and under the direction that globalists give us in their one world system. Certainly we can see that philosophical kinship, and American Free Press will continue to explore this issue to try and get to the bottom of who precisely the Guidestones group is. At any rate, we recognize the relationship to the Earth Charter, and we certainly sound the alarm here about such a dystopian and downward look at the common man by the one-worlders in our 21st century. So we'll see you next time. Here on AmericanFreePress.net, I'm Mark Anderson with this Across the Nation commentary.
Ironically, however, the very innovations that are making possible dramatic improvements in human well-being are also creating new problems which raise the specter of an alarming and possibly catastrophic disaster to the biosphere we live in. And herein lies the dilemma that we all face. Let me illustrate. Improved public health has caused the world's infant mortality rate to decline by 60% over the last 40 years. In the same period, the world's average life expectancy has increased from 46 years in 1950s to 63 years today. This is a development which, as individuals, we can only applaud. However, the result of these positive measures is a world population that has risen during the same short period of time geometrically to almost 6 billion people and could easily exceed 8 billion by the year 2020. The negative impact of population growth on all of our planetary ecosystems is becoming appallingly evident. The rapid growing exploitation of the world's supply of energy and water is a matter of deep concern, and the toxic byproducts of widespread industrialization have increased atmospheric pollution to dangerous levels. Unless nations will agree to work together to tackle these cross-border challenges posed by population growth, overconsumption of resources, and environmental degradation, the prospects for a decent life on our planet will be threatened. The recent UN meeting in Cairo is appropriately focused on one of these key issues, population growth. But the controversies which have erupted at the conference illustrate the problem of coming to grips with issues that are deeply divisive and which have a profound moral dimension. The United Nations can and should play an essential role in helping the world find a satisfactory way of stabilizing world population and stimulating economic development in a manner that is sensitive to religious and moral considerations. Economic growth is, of course, an inevitable corollary of a growing population and is essential to improve standards of living. But without careful coordination, unrestrained economic growth poses further threats to our environment. This was a major subject of discussion at the conference in Rio de Janeiro on the environment 2 years ago. The focus then was on sustainable growth and global development. It was pointed out at the conference that growth is most efficiently managed by the private sector. But regulation of the process by national governments and international bodies is also needed. And once again, the United Nations should certainly be among the catalysts and coordinators of this process.
Not doing it will be catastrophic. We'll have 8 degrees, we'll be 8 degrees hotter in 10, not 10, but in 30 or 40 years, and basically none of the crops will grow. Most of the people will have died, and the rest of us will be cannibals. Civilization will have broken down. What the few people who are left will be living in a failed state like Somalia or Sudan, and living conditions will be intolerable. The droughts will be so bad there'll be no more corn growing. Not doing it is suicide. Just like dropping bombs on each other, nuclear weapons is suicide. So we've got to stop doing the two suicidal things, which are hanging on to our nuclear weapons
and globalization.
And then after that, we've got to stabilize the population. When I was born, there were
so what's wrong with the population? I mean,
with too many people. That's why we have global warming. We have global warming because too many people are using too much stuff.
But
if there were less people, they'd be using less stuff.
Mr. Turner, I was wondering if you think it's a good idea to reduce 90% of the population because we are being overpopulated by a lot of... 90%. 80? Prince Philip said 80, sir. I go with 85.
I think 2 billion is about right.
Right, me too. Thank you.
One-child family.
Exactly. One-child policy.
Can you speak about your population control, saying you wanted to reduce the population to 95% extermination? You said you want a one-child policy, but you have 5 kids. Doesn't make any sense.
The youngest one is 40 years old.
All right, but understand.
The world population then was 3 million.
But that's what the Nazis did with eugenics, sir. They wanted to destroy humanity.
Pay detail.
You don't got to tell you. I'm not even doing nothing wrong. Can you tell me what I did wrong?
You don't have permission here.
Yes, I do. I'm a legitimate person. I'm on the list, so I'm not even doing nothing illegal.
You talk to the management. You talk to the management.
All right. Said Turner, you're an enemy of humanity, and your Nazi-like policies won't be tolerated. I don't want to give you any trouble. I'm just trying to ask my questions, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm leaving, okay? Don't worry about that. Why do you want to destroy humanity, sir? You're an enemy of humanity. Why do you support eugenics? The Nazis support eugenics too. I'm on a public sidewalk and you cannot touch me. No, this is a public sidewalk. Get
Sir,
I'm just talking to him.
I got to step to the back.
So what'd you do at the Bilderberg group? That's where you decided your eugenics policy?
Why do you support depopulation, Ted?
Is it when the Bilderberg? Just like the Nazis did, exterminated the Jews with eugenics. You're doing the same thing nowadays, trying to exterminate the normal people.
Is 80% depopulation enough? Is 80% enough? 90%? And who's going to decide who lives and dies?
Be ashamed of yourself. You are not our leader. National sovereignty will prevail, and we will not have a new world order. We won't have a one world government. The elite won't be in charge because the people and national sovereignty will always prevail, sir.
Eugenics is no laughing matter, sir. Depopulation is no laughing matter.
Your silence shows complicity, sir.
Ted, who's going to decide who lives and dies over your eugenics population program?
You're no better than a Nazi.